I'm just saying that when you point out corruption in our government, it's vague posturing at Kamala Harris being corrupt when we have a name of people that Donald Trump pardoned, even though he was lobbying his campaign on behalf of Russia. Like, that's obvious corruption. But no one ever points out the pardon for Manafort. No one ever points out the pardon for Roger Stone, who was lying to Congress, or the pardon list of the people that helped him try to overturn the last election. It's funny that I don't know why I don't care about that case almost even a little bit. But the thing is that I think it's funny that people are so quick to jump to fraud whenever they don't have any evidence of fraud. They just have like weird questions because they don't know how the legal process works.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm hanging in there.
I think we all are.
Yeah, I'm a little scared for the election.
Are you? Who are you? Trump or are you Kamala?
I'm pretty firmly in the Harris camp.
Oh, okay.
Same here, Kamala.
Ooh. So you said that you're fearful
Yeah.
of Trump or just the whole situation?
Yeah, I think Trump is an actual authoritarian threat to the country. His undermining of all of our democratic institutions is really scary to me. He almost got away with it in 2020, and I thought that the American people wouldn't vote him back in again because that's our main barrier from keeping wannabe authoritarians out of office. But there's like 50% of the country that is willing to support him still.
Yeah. And so why do you support Kamala?
Because I will vote for anybody if it means that Donald Trump doesn't get into office. I want to preserve democracy, and I want to vote for the next most viable person that will keep who I view is an authoritarian out of office.
So would you say that it's not necessarily like her and her policies that are earning her your vote? It's more so your distaste for Trump?
Yeah, she's actually not significantly to the left of me, but she's definitely to the left of me. I don't agree with a lot of the things that she'll push for, but I also don't think she'll be a super effective president. The main thing that I want from Harris is to just be a return to normalcy, like a return to more unifying rhetoric instead of calling people a swarm of locusts or, trying to invade the Capitol building when you lose the election.
I will say too that I also support her policy, and we can talk policy if you'd like, because I do think she has better policy than Donald Trump. But it is also important to talk about the character of a person when you're voting for him, because really at the end of the day, it's character and policy that determines who's the best fit. And I see that you're in front of a computer. Are you willing to like look some things up if I tell you about things?
If I can, I mean, I'm willing, yeah, but whether or not I can right that moment will be.
That's fair. Well, like for example, let's start with something small, and this is a character thing. If you want to move on to policy afterwards, we can. But how do you feel about Donald Trump saying that he wants to date a 10-year-old in 10 years?
How do you think I would feel about that? I mean, really, a grown man saying that about a child, I'm not okay
Yeah,
with.
so right, because like if you think about it, right, like what quality is Donald Trump seeing in this 10-year-old girl that makes him think that he wants to date her? And we know like when Donald Trump dates a woman, what does he do with them? Right? Like this is a sexual thing. So why is he looking at this 10-year-old and thinking these things?
I don't know. I'm pulling that up though. Donald Trump's disturbing remarks regarding a child. Once saw a child on an escalator and said, "I'm going to be dating her in 10 years." Can you believe it?
You can watch the
Unclear
video
how
and
old
hear him
the girl was
speaking.
at the time. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't feel good about that.
Yeah.
This happened
I mean,
in
and that's just
1992. Another thing, though, and I really kind of like to play devil's advocate a little bit. Like maybe I do need to actually pull it up and listen to the video because I'm very big on context. Like,
of course.
not that it makes anything that he said appropriate. That's not what I mean. But like, what was the context of the situation? What is happening here? Are there men talking about women and dating them? Like, did this girl just come on the elevator and he thinks she's a pretty like? Not
Like they
again, not that that makes
yeah,
the statement okay at all, but
sure.
like
I mean
what,
that the
why
sorry.
did he even say that? Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
yeah. No, I mean the context, I mean it was completely just like an offhand comment that he made. I think it was just like a general interview with Donald Trump in public,
yeah.
and he just like said that. Like they weren't talking about dating
Yeah,
women
that's
in
fucking
the
weird. I
you know
mean,
what I mean?
I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh yeah, that's normal. That's
Yeah.
odd.
I mean that's and again like that's just like a small thing. I mean like we can even bring up the court case that he has against him with E. Jean Carroll. I don't know how much you know about that. But like I feel like that just adds on to like his rhetoric with women and how he treats women and like how he's just not respectful of
Yeah, I
women.
mean, I definitely don't think he has the best character um, in that sense. I also think that before he became a politician, he lived a very rich businessman lifestyle that a lot of us can't even like grasp or understand, like his surroundings or the things that he was doing or the people he was surrounding himself with, things like
Right.
that. Um, So I don't think he's a saint. I'm not one of those Trump supporters who think like he's our savior and like a prophet and God has sent him to us and all these kinds of
Hmm.
things. I'm definitely not one of those. But when
Oh,
we
for
talk
sure.
about his character, there are like I love how he like I love his no bullshit. I like how he's doesn't have a filter. I like those kind of things. I like him, you know, be have your enemies closer and things like that. Those things I do like about him.
So
Um,
Okay.
can I ask a question? Because
yeah,
his personal exploits prior to the presidency don't even concern me as much theoretically. I definitely think that it's something to consider, but um, so do you agree that somebody trying to expand the power that is designated to them as the executive would probably be concerning, like him trying to overstep the amount of power that he has as the president?
yeah, for sure.
Okay. So can I lay some? It's gonna take me a second, but can I lay something out?
Yeah,
Because
go
this.
ahead.
Okay. So there's this guy, right? He's the attorney general. His name is Jeffrey Rosen. There's the deputy attorney general, Richard Donahue, and there's a lower level. So in 2020, Jeffrey Clark writes a letter um, directed towards the state legislature in Georgia, saying that they had identified significant amounts of fraud in their election. And Donald Trump took that letter and he went to Jeffrey Rosen and he said, "Hey, can we send this letter with the stamp of approval from the DOJ telling Georgia that there was fraud in their election?" And Rosen says, "Well, no, the DOJ has investigated all of the claims of fraud in this letter and we didn't find anything, so we're not comfortable sending this letter." Trump says, "Okay." And then he asks Donahue to send the letter. Donahue tells him the same thing. He says, "Okay." He tries a couple more times to get them to send the letter and it doesn't happen. So then what he does is he tries to fire Jeffrey Rosen and replace him with Jeffrey Clark so that Jeffrey Clark would send the letter, essentially lying to the Georgia state legislature so they recall their electors. Um, this is first of all, the president, it's DOJ policy that the president shouldn't be communicating with anyone within the DOJ outside of the attorney general and the deputy attorney general. Two, the attorney general had already told him that the DOJ had looked into these fraud claims and found nothing, and he still tried to get them to tell Georgia these fraud claims that were previously debunked. Um, doesn't that like feel a
Sorry, I
little
wasn't laughing
concerning?
at you.
No, I understand, but like, and we have testimony from Jeffrey Rosen. We have testimony from people who were in the meeting where that they held about firing Rosen and replacing him with Clark. The only reason that Clark didn't become the acting attorney general is because half of the DOJ threatened to quit because he was wildly incompetent and said that his first act as the attorney general would be committing a felony in trying to get records from voting machines. Um, doesn't this feels like a very clear attempt to pressure the state legislatures to lie to put himself back in power? I feel like that alone should be disqualifying on top of, and then you take into account all of the false electors and like the lying to the public and the
So again, it's like obviously I agree none of that is right and it shouldn't be allowed to happen and it should, like, totally agree. But he's definitely not the only one that has done that. I'm almost positive. And I really feel like it's like of the lesser evil, you know, like.
Okay, but let's point out, please, like, give me like anything Kamala has done that is anywhere near trying to overthrow the
I don't
election.
know anything she's done because I don't think she's done shit in the last 4 years. So I don't know. You tell me, what has she done?
In
What has she
addition to
done?
that, I would also point out that there's a reason that Donald Trump was the first president to ever be indicted after leaving office, because I've done a lot of research into this. This is my
What state
one
are you in?
main. I'd prefer not to share, but I'm
Okay.
I'm in a red state.
Okay.
But I've done a lot
Massachusetts,
of research.
baby.
I've done a lot of research on this particular thing, and there is almost no historical basis for this outside of prior to the Electoral Count Act. He is the first president to be indicted. One of the indictments regards to his plot to overturn the 2020 election. And we have the J6 committee with subpoenaed documents backing up basically everything that's in Jack Smith's superseding indictment. And the Supreme Court exonerated him, arguably validly or not, from exactly what I laid out of him trying to fire Rosen and replacing him with Clark, because that's an official act, and that can't even be admitted into a court of law. So I don't know. I feel like that presents a very unique, arguably authoritarian, because it was an attempt to overturn our democratic election, threat to our country.
Yeah. Well.
Also, just real quick, when you say like, what has she done? I mean, here's the thing that I find really confusing about that argument, right? Like, Kamala Harris was well, no, she was a district attorney, then she was an attorney general, then she was a senator, and then she was vice president of the United States. Meanwhile, back in 2016, you guys voted in Donald Trump, who had literally no political background. So this whole idea of like she's not qualified is kind of silly when you think about when we initially voted for Trump. He was not anywhere
I don't
near as
necessarily
qualified
think
as.
she's not qualified. I mean, she definitely has had her foot in politics for, like you said, the Senate, all of that. I don't think that, other than her, no, she doesn't have a military background, right? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, I don't
But
think
what
so.
does military background really have to do with anything? I mean, I
Because
would
don't-
think
I don't-
our
that
commander in chief, hasn't it always been like that? Our commander in chief
Well,
had
I mean,
military.
Donald
also-
Trump doesn't have military background.
Trump still
either.
never had military
Yeah.
background. Remember the Bone Spurs?
I also
He-
don't want to detract
he
from
didn't
what
serve.
Reynolds said, because I think
Are you
it's
gonna tell me he
sorry
did
if I
serve?
butchered your name.
No, you're
Because
good.
I think it's really important to pay attention when a president tries to overturn an election, like very clearly. And this isn't something that like he necessarily disputes. Like his own lawyers have said on television that like they tried to send, as they say, alternative, but they were fake slates of electors to literally overturn your vote. Like,
Well, in
this
addition
is a
to
real
that,
thing that happened.
in addition to that, the legal arguments that the Trump campaign have been presenting to via appeals in the Jack Smith case never lay out that anything in the Jack Smith case was factually inaccurate, or that he didn't do anything laid out in the indictment. It's that, well, I was the president, so I should be immune from criminal prosecution. So it's never
Right,
that
which no
he
one's
didn't
above
do
the
any
law.
of
That's
this.
ridiculous.
It's that he's above the law. Yeah.
Right. Like we
Hey,
should not
can
put
I
a
just say one
person in
thing?
power who thinks that. Go ahead.
Yeah, go
Do you
ahead.
remember- Do we forget the Watergate? We forget Watergate? What was Watergate?
What does that have to do with Kamala Harris versus Trump? I mean,
What does that have to do with? Yeah,
But,
what is,
but no,
what's
but
that
you said it, no one's ever been tried to overthrow an election, and that was that was about.
It was. I'm
Okay,
saying
if that
It was
person-
getting
Donald
dirt
Trump's-
on other people.
I'm
That's what
saying
it was
that Donald Trump's efforts were unique in the sense that he was actually tampering with the electoral college votes.
Okay.
And again, like if anyone
What about the
ever
votes
did
being
these
tampered
things,
with
I would
right
never
now?
vote for them.
The freaking,
Like,
have y'all
like-
seen that?
Yeah, the ballot
What?
boxes.
Yeah, who do you think
Yeah.
are burning these ballot boxes? Democrats?
I don't
think
know
that
who's
early- the
doing
people
it.
who are
Whoever's
voting-
doing it, Democrat or
The
Republican,
people
you're
who have
awful.
been for early
Yes.
voting for years
Well,
and years and years. Why
I
would
point
we?
out that I
that
think
doesn't
the-
make sense.
I think the latest investigation shows that it was probably actually neither Democrat voters or Republican voters, and it was actually
Just some
probably just
asshole.
disgruntled supporters of Gaza, is what they're looking at right now.
Well, I'm sure, right? Gaza, right?
Yeah.
Can I interject here?
Yeah.
So the ones that are supporting Harris, do you guys agree that there's corruption in our government? Both sides. I'm not saying
course.
just Democratic side. I'm saying Democrats and Republican, that we have
Yes,
corruption.
people in power abuse power. There's no question.
Sure.
Okay. Which candidate is trying to address that? That has even brought that up to the attention and even said anything about it?
Certainly,
So-
Kamala Harris would more effectively attack corruption than Donald Trump, because Donald Trump literally
Has
engaged
Kamala
in corrupt
Harris come
actions
out
while
and
he was
said
in
that
office.
she is wanting to address the corruption in the government? Has she said that at all?
Addressing corruption in the government isn't a policy position. Like that's a platitude. I don't care if she came out.
Also, if you
Yeah,
want to
she
say that
actually did. Price
Donald Trump
gouging,
ran
she's
on-
trying to protect us from the negative effects of capitalism. I mean, that's what she's trying to do with the price gouging. We all forget that we run on a capitalistic.
Listen, I'm not talking about price gouging. I'm talking about career politicians
You're
that are
talking
in
about
our
drain the swamp.
government.
No, you said that
That-
she wasn't doing anything.
Yeah,
My
That's
question
and
would
you're
be-
talking
She is
about
doing
price gouging.
just
That has
that.
nothing to do
because
with
because that
career
is doing
politicians in our
something
government.
for the long goal. That is doing something for the long goal.
Right, but Shocker is talking about draining the swamp, as Trump said back when he ran. And my question to you, Shocker, is did he do that? Because that's one of the things he ran on. Did he, as he says, drain the swamp? Who did he drain out of the swamp?
No, because there was an interview, if you haven't seen it. He specifically said when he first got in, he was surrounded by people that he didn't expect to win the election. And when he got put in there, all right, he was surrounded by all these lobbyists and all these people, and he didn't know who to trust. He admitted that he made mistakes with the people that he put in place, and that is why
Okay,
this
so he's
time.
bad at choosing people.
Well, can
That
I
is
can I
why
ask
he had,
this
like-
time, no, let me
From
finish.
beginning
Let
to
me
end,
finish.
though?
This
From beginning
time,
to end?
hold on, let me finish. All right. This time, he is coming in and he is doing something that no other president has ever done, and he is putting his own transition team together that isn't involving lobbyists.
Yes, he's installing Trump loyalists into power. Like this is not that's a scary thing. You shouldn't look at that as a good thing. He's only putting people in his cabinet that are Trump loyalists, and he wants to get rid of anyone who disagrees with his opinion.
Right,
That's
Can we go
authoritarian.
through the
Can I-
short
can I ask
list?
the
I
question
mean,
real quick?
Elon Musk.
Can I
I
ask
mean,
the question real quick?
RFK makes no sense. Just look at the short list of people that he Bannon, Giuliani. I mean, look
So-
at the lineup of his Madison Square Garden. I mean, these are his people. These
when
are the
we're
type of
looking at-
people that he's going to appoint in
Hold on.
positions.
when we're looking at Trump being somehow anti-corruption, why would he then pardon people like Roger Stone, who was lying to Congress about the Mueller report, or people like Paul Manafort, who was lobbying his campaign on behalf of Viktor Yanukovych, or had like a pardon list as a part of the 2020 election for people like John Eastman or Rudy Giuliani? Like that's clearly out in broad daylight corruption. But instead, we want to posture towards vague senses of corruption in the Harris campaign.
At the end of the day, there's corruption in our government.
But the one that you're pointing out on Harris's side is just
We
vague
definitely don't need it
posturing
from our
at
president.
corruption, and we
But
have
we
a
definitely
name of
don't
all
need it
of the
from our
corrupt people
president,
that Trump pardoned.
All right, let me know when you're done.
I'm just saying that when you point out corruption in our government, it's vague posturing at Kamala Harris being corrupt when we have a name of people that Donald Trump pardoned, even though he was lobbying his campaign on behalf of Russia. Like, that's obvious corruption. But no one ever points out the pardon for Manafort. No one ever points out the pardon for Roger Stone, who was lying to Congress, or the pardon list of the people that helped him try to overturn the last election.
Can we just agree to the fact that why are we even talking about who's more corrupt when we have a convicted felon of 34 financial fraud? Like he deliberately frauded.
No, but see, the
Like,
DOJ
why can't
is
we just agree there that the
Nah,
more
but-
of the corrupt is Trump?
yeah, but the Democrats are weaponizing the Department of Justice against Donald Trump, so you can't use that argument.
I mean, it's kind of just like, oh, we're glad we caught you type of thing.
They're
You
they're
can't
buying
say that
out grand juries,
they
too.
didn't falsify any records. They didn't make
See,
him do it. He did it. They found out.
right.
They
But this is the
prosecuted him
problem.
to the law, which he should have done. If I
You
was
got
to
to
find
remember,
out
though,
10 years ago that I cheated on my mortgage loan, they would come after me 10 years. What would be the difference? There would be no difference. No matter when
There
you
is a
do
difference,
it,
though.
when you get found out, you have
There is a
to
difference, though.
come up to the law and take
So
care
no,
of what you
let's let MAGA have a chance.
you can't you cannot say, oh well, he's a convicted felon, because first of all, he hasn't been convicted yet. Second,
No, he hasn't
when
been
they
sentenced.
considered a
He hasn't
conviction
been
until he's been
sentenced.
sentenced.
That's a
No,
lie.
it
That's
is.
just a
It
lie.
is.
No,
He just hasn't
not
been
according to
sentenced.
not according to New York state law. It's not.
Naga, why would we
Hush,
call
I'm
it a
talking.
conviction? Why would we call it a conviction
And
if a
two,
conviction isn't enough to be convicted?
how you gonna
That doesn't make
have
any fucking
a
sense.
Let him
a
talk.
corrupt prosecutor change the laws from misdemeanor to felony to go after somebody?
No, it was because there was a predicate crime of election
Felony
interference,
because of the
right?
amount. It was a felony because of the amount.
Well, it wasn't it. I
You,
thought it
you
was
guys
because
can
of
It was
you
a
guys
felony
you
because
guys
it was in
could
furtherance of
try
another crime.
to justify it
Right,
any way you want, but it was a corrupt prosecutor changed the laws to go after a single person.
You're just virtue signaling. That you're
No,
saying
you're just
corrupt, but you haven't
Hold on,
you're
pointed
just
to a
making
single point of
excuses
corruption.
for your corrupt
MAGA.
side.
Point to a single point of corruption.
Financial records.
What was corrupt?
Point blank, period. He falsified
MAGA, just
financial records. He inflated personal values and assets.
Y'all need to go back and check on that fraud case. It was overturned in the Court of Appeals because
Bingo.
there
no, it
was
wasn't.
nothing to be
No,
founded
he,
on it.
he sent
No,
it out.
no, it
Never
wasn't.
overturned.
Yes, by golly,
You're
it
thinking
was
of
overfounded.
No,
You're
by golly, it
confusing. You're
It was
confusing
the
his
attorneys
multiple
were
cases
asking to
against
be
him.
kept from being sanctioned because they come out and said it was a political stunt because they have never in their life heard of a fraud case being tried and prosecuted on someone when there was no one that was defrauded, when the money was paid back in full with interest.
I'm sure the
You can-
Facebook
you
article
can-
was really convincing, but those charges were never overturned. You're just lying.
Yes, sir. You
Yeah.
better go back and check on them.
If I
I
Google it
promise
right
you,
now,
sir,
it'll
if that happened, it would be
overturned.
national news, and we would all know
Do
about
you
it. but
think
that's just not what
ABC,
happened.
CBS, MSNBC, and CNN is going to say anything about it, dude?
They're
Yes,
probably
if
going to
his-
have
if
better
his trial
reporting
was
than Facebook
appealed-
They
did.
don't. No, they will not. Because anything
Okay,
that
can I-
helps Trump, they will not say anything.
Can I
You
just say
have
one
got
thing
to
too?
be kidding me. Y'all have got TDS something fierce.
No, you have the MAGA mind virus. But here's the thing, right? When you live in
What the hell?
conspiracy theory, you can believe whatever you want, but we have to live in reality. We have to live with facts. We can't just assume that everything is rigged. You have to have proof for these things.
It's funny that I don't know why I don't care about that case almost even a little bit. But the thing is that I think it's funny that people are so quick to jump to fraud whenever they don't have any evidence of fraud. They just have like weird questions because they don't know how the legal process works.
Huh?
You have no idea that it was fraud. You're just assuming because you don't know why the case wasn't moved. You can't possibly fathom a reason that the judge would deny moving the case. But you don't even know the cited reason that she didn't move the case. You're just posturing towards fraud.
No, I'm not. Because right now he's being investigated for election interference.
Yes,
so
and
is his
that
daughter.
case is fully backed up. We have literally the evidence that Jack Smith submitted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
like
it's none of it substantiated because there was
none of-
nobody that was
what in the indictment isn't substantiated?
who was defrauded.
You're okay.
That's
You're-
a different
you're-
case.
No, on that case right there, buddy, he was asked to have it moved and
Lee,
he was denied.
Lee, listen. I hope that once this election is over and MAGA fades into oblivion, I hope that you can, talk to good people, and just move on with your life from this, because like this is just ridiculous. Like there's no reason for you to be, having these conspiratorial views. I don't think you really know what you're talking about. Respectfully, like stop listening to what you see on Facebook. it's we got to educate people. I just don't know what to do.
You should stop listening to what you see on MSNBC too.
Does
I'm not
anyone in
looking
here
at
know-
Thank you very
MSNBC,
much.
sir.
Why don't y'all go to
anyone in here-
Thing is, you guys assume that
instead
you
of
guys
quit
assume
going
that
on,
we just
on all these other ones.
Does anyone in here
you
know
just
how to
assume that we
secure
only
an
watch
indictment?
CNN, but that's just not true. I mean, like,
Either Lee or the person above him. How do you secure an indictment?
I don't know. How do you secure an indictment?
You have to present evidence to a grand jury, and they have to determine that there's probable cause to indict.
Do you think Trump could have got a fair trial in Manhattan, New York? Seriously.
yes.
He's literally from New York.
Oh
You can't
my-
find a more fair
Oh
trial.
my God, buddy! Are you serious? You think
What do you think the population of New York City that's Democrat leaning is?
Should we have tried
it
him in
is
fucking
a
Florida instead? Like,
Democratic stronghold. It is a liberal stronghold.
I
Are
heard
you
New York
serious?
is actually going red.
do you think that
Last I checked, it's 56% Democrat.
do you think Trump could ever get a fair trial? Ever?
Yeah, I sure do.
Where?
Arkansas, Texas, probably
The
Ohio,
bunch of red
Florida.
states, of course. Because
See, you just answered my question,
funny.
buddy.
It's
Thank
funny
you. Thank you
because
very much.
Whenever,
just told
whenever
you.
I ask if Donald Trump can get an unrigged trial, they're actually just talking about it being rigged in his favor, and somehow that's fair to him because we've let conservatives build the narrative that somehow the media is rigged against him, even though they don't cover a half of the fucking terribly corrupt things that he does. They just see a couple of negative articles about him saying a certain thing, and they think that it's rigged against him. Not a peep from the mainstream media about him trying to overturn the election, but that's fine. That we can still pretend like.
Oh,
like,
what about
80
Hillary
we can
Clinton?
still
Hold it.
pretend
What
like
about
60
Hillary
we
Clinton?
can
What
still-
about Hillary Clinton? Y'all.
I don't care about Hillary Clinton. She's not running.
How
So
about this?
we can still pretend like a 40-60 split in the media is somehow biased against the guy who does 90% of like fucking.
Do
corrupt
you
actions.
even
We
know
can
how
still
much of the
pretend like that's
media
biased,
is
but it's
left
not.
leaning? Do you even know how much of the media is
Hold
left
on.
leaning? Do you
There's a
realize that
difference
over
between
90% of the
I
media is
feel
left
like-
leaning?
Almost anybody. And almost anybody, if you fucked almost anybody 30 years ago and you showed them the corrupt actions that Donald Trump partook in, they would all fucking gag at the idea of him being president.
I think that we're not going to get anywhere on this discussion. If we want to change the subject and talk about policy, I'd love to talk about why Donald Trump's tariffs are going to hurt all of us, especially low and middle class Americans.
I would,
Because I
I
feel
would
like
like,
that might be something we might be able to conceptualize a little bit better.
I would
So
like,
sorry, I got a little fiery. I gotta go.
I would like to ask if you agree with her.
It's always just, oh, well, doesn't this seem strange? Doesn't that point to corruption? But then they don't know how the process works. That's always how.